through last week, which I guess is the whole thing. We did it. There's some repeats that go into that, so we're going to look at that today, and then we're going to look at adding the left hand into it. So here's the review. Gabriel, did you get a chance to watch on maybe the Facebook Live or the Facebook page last week? No? Okay, that's totally fine. Here's how this is going to go. First of all, if it helps you, we've got this notation here all set up for you guys. So first of all, we have the sort of simpler rhythm. It's all the same notes, but the rhythm's been rearranged just a little bit to make it easier to get a grasp of. So it starts in something that would be similar to F position. So F, G, A, B, C in your right hand, thumb to pinky, F, G, A, B, C. And those numbers right there, they correspond exactly with the finger that you're going to play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to cross 2 over the top to get to E. Okay. That first section there, which is going to stop right there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2 crosses over. So now we're basically in a D position, right? Our thumb now is on D, and we have D, E, F, G, A. D, E, F, G, A. And we're going to play what's basically the exact same pattern there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, with a slight alteration. 3, 2, 1, cross 2 over. Now that 4 right there coming down in the right hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5. That's going to be a G sharp instead of a regular G the second time around. 3, 2, 1, cross 2 over. Okay. One more time in that new position. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5. 4 is sharp. 3, 2, 1, cross 2 over. Then we have C sharp with our third finger. That's right there. So we're going from C natural, second finger, to C sharp, third finger. And then we're wrapping up sort of back in a D-ish position, D position, 1, 5, 5. Then we slide our hand over so that our pinky is on C, 5, 4, 2. Then we have one more movement. We're going basically back to C position from here, 5, 5, 1, 1. Quick rest, 1, 2, 1. That's where we're at today. Now, if you guys need a copy of this PDF, just send a text to the office, let Mr. James know, and we'll send this out to your email. You'll get a copy of this, and today we're going to be taking this and adding some left-hand parts to it. Now, if we go back to the beginning, we can take this same finger pattern, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cross 2 over, okay? That's the first part. But we're going to apply a rhythm to it. It's a basic jazz rhythm. We call it a swing rhythm, where every other note is long and every second note is short. Long, short, long, short, long, short. Or we're going to use the exact same notes, exact same fingers. Scroll. Why doesn't it want to scroll? There we go. It's just being goofy. Okay. Okay. So when we go into this swing rhythm, which is a standardized name for this kind of rhythm, long, short, long, short, long, short. You'll see this rhythm everywhere. It's not just jazz, pop music, classical music, jazz, of course, blues, funk, pretty much everything. This is everywhere because it's a simple way, an easy way to take a melody and make it more interesting without having to change any of the notes or any of the fingers or anything like that. It's a quick and easy way to do that. So that's what we went over last week, okay? And if if you need some more time on that, I'm happy to review that one more time. Are we good to go to the next part, or do we need to talk about this a little bit more? So your microphone is on. I'm not getting anything from it. Just give me a thumbs up if we're good, or a thumbs down if we need to review. Okay, awesome, perfect, that works. All right, thank you, Liberty. So here we go. We're gonna take this this piece of sheet music right here that we have, and we're gonna add, first of all, we're gonna add a couple of notes to this for the left hand. We're gonna start out with single note rhythms, okay, and we're gonna graduate from there into chords if we feel like it. All right, so this first measure, we're going to put this note way down here. Now, if you're not familiar with reading music, that's totally fine. We're going to be labeling these with letters as we go. So that note, that first one right there, is an A. Now, I'm not super picky which A you use on your keyboard. We just want it to be proportional. So that particular A is the third A on a full-size keyboard. 1, 2, 3. If your keyboard is maybe a little bit smaller, maybe it's 66 keys instead of 88, 61 keys, it's probably that second A, okay? And the C that we're gonna start with in the right hand is the C above middle C. Okay. So all we're gonna do for this first measure is you're gonna play and you're gonna hold that A at the same time that you play the C in the right hand. Oops, that is not the notes I wanted. Just like that. That's all there is to it. That's all. Okay. Now in the next measure, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to add the next note. Now this one down here, we're going to come back and label it in a second. This is a D. Okay. Now it relationally, it's underneath the A that we just played. Okay. That would be those two measures combined. One more time. Okay, the next measure, we're going to have a G, which is going to be relationally, again, it's going to be above the D that you just played. So we have A, D, G so far. You play one note per measure. When you put them together, that's all three right there. If this is too much to think about all at once, the notes and the rhythm, go ahead and use the simple rhythm instead of the advanced rhythm, just for now, just to get these all the notes put together. We've got one more note to add in this phrase, and it's going to be, whoops, not that one. There it is. It's going to be that C right there. And that is, again, relationally, it's below the G that you just played. So we have A, down to D, up to G, down to C. A, D, G, C. Now we put those four measures together in both hands. I'm going to use the simple rhythm just to make it easier to look at. One more time. Now, if you apply the advanced rhythm to that, okay. Going on to our next phrase. Our next note is F. And if you haven't already noticed, most of our chords here are going to be whole measure chords. Okay. Just to make it easy, keep it simple. I'll show you some advanced techniques you can utilize if you're going to do more full chords instead of just the single notes. But for now, every chord gets its own measure. So head into the next phrase after we transition to the D position now. And here, our note on the bottom is going to be F. And it's the same kind of idea again. Starting into that next phrase. When you come into that phrase from the first measure, this pattern, there's a pattern, and I'll show it to you in a second. As soon as you see it, you'll go, oh, I got it. But I'm gonna ask you guys and see if you guys can spot it first. Here is our next note down here, and this is gonna be B. Don't worry if you aren't getting all of these, remembering the order, that's okay. We're gonna go back through and we're gonna notate them into our page in a little bit, okay? So here we are. We're in our new phrase, new position. We start with F. We go down to B. That's that low one down there. We have only a few more to go. That's low B. So, yes, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. Before we do that, I have two questions that I want to pose to you guys. Now, you can have a second to think about these. I'm not going to throw these out at you and expect an answer right away. Liberty, the question that I want you to answer, first of all, is what is the pattern between all of these left-hand notes? There's a pattern. It's a very visible, very distinguishable pattern. I want you to find it. And then let's get to Gabriel's question. Okay, you should be unmuted. Go ahead with your question.
They go back and forth.
They, yes, I'll get to that in a second. For right this second, we're having trouble. I'm not getting any audio from Gabriel. Looks like you're unmuted.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, no, I can't.
Yeah? Oh, what do we do on the left hand if our keyboard doesn't go down to that B?
Okay, that's a good question because we're working our way down, right? If you can't go down to a letter, just reverse it and go up to the next one. So if you don't have a B down here, I still want you to use that, maybe your pinky to play it, but instead of down here, just shift your hand up to this B. That's totally fine. And if your keyboard will allow you, maybe even starting instead of with this A here, maybe start with the next one higher. That way you can go all the way down if you want to. So there's two options, two solutions. A, when you get to the B, play this one instead, the higher B, or start everything one octave higher. Either way, that'll work, okay? All right, real quick, let me go back to Liberty. So you did say there the pattern is that it does go up and down, right? We have this sort of sequence. It goes down, and then it goes back up, and then it goes down. Is there any pattern to it, though, besides just down and up and down and up?
Yes.
What is it?
It's like so. It's next to each other. Like the chords are next to each other.
So I understand what you're saying. A to D, and then G to C, and then F to B. Right? That's what you're saying. The chords kind of become stacked into each other. Yes, that's half of the answer. So I like that. Here's the reason why they're stacked next to each other. So far in this sequence, in this pattern that we've had, we always go down a fifth, and we always come back up a fourth. A to D is 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D to G, 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. Then we go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we go back up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if this pattern holds true, let's see, Gabriel. If this pattern holds true, what is our next note going to be? If it's always down 5, up 4, down 5, up 4, down 5, up 4, what's our next note?
An E?
That's correct. Our next note is going to be E. Let's hop back over to our page. Mr. James for the applause. Yay! Where's my share button? There it is. All right, here we go. So we have one. Liberty, what is the next note?
So I was gonna have a question for you. I don't exactly get what's on the left hand for the second part.
What's on the left hand for the second part? How do you mean?
Like, so you know how we do. I didn't exactly get what you were saying.
Okay, I'll come back to that in just a second. So far, we've had this pattern of down a fifth, up a fourth, down a fifth, up a fourth. Gabriel was spot on. After this B, he said our next note is going to be an E. Totally true, because we went up a fourth. So now if we go down a fifth from E, my question is, what is the next note going to be?
Okay.
That is correct. It's going to be an A. Now, Gabriel, if you didn't have that B, I'm assuming you don't have that A. So that one would also be up instead of down. You just find the next available A. Okay. So now let me go back here. Let me put this notation in here for you. So we have this super cool thing called technology. It makes teaching music much easier than it's ever been because I can just write letters on everything for everybody. Okay, so far that's what we have in our second part, Liberty, that we're doing here. We're just playing different notes in the same pattern. Every measure gets a new note. Starting from part 2, the sequence of notes for the left hand is F, B, E, and then A. That was that second half there, or next part, sorry, that we covered. We started with A, D, G, C. Then the next part, F, B, E, A. Almost forgot what letter was next. F, B, E, A. Okay, so far, that's where we're at. So I want you guys to take a second and play through it. Use the simple rhythm or the advanced rhythm, whichever one you want to do. And that'll get you through it. It'll get you through this first and second part. Now, if you want to use the advanced rhythm, that's fine. Just swing everything in the right hand. That'll give you that sort of jazzy swung kind of sound. So far, so good. Does anybody have any problems with part 1 and part 2 that they want to go over? Recover? No? Liberty, no? Okay, we're good. Awesome. I love it. Then we can do more. So the next part here, we have one line to go. Okay? So we've done all of this. Whoops, let me switch it back to my keyboard cam. So just to be goofy, to keep this interesting, I've actually named my cameras. So the most dynamic duo that I could think of is Tom and Jerry. So my face cam over here is Tom and my keyboard cam is Jerry. So we have Jerry helping us out right now. Okay, first part. Oops. Second part. Now, that gets us to the C natural. Now we need to manage that C sharp. This is the first measure where we're going to have a split measure chord, okay? So for right now, whoops, that's not what I wanted at all. Let me change that duration there. Why is it being funky? There we go. Okay, it's just me. Perfect. Okay, so for right now, right this second, it doesn't change anything for us. We're still going to be playing A on the bottom for the second chord, but what's going to happen is instead of an A minor chord, when we get to full chords here, this first one's going to be A minor, then it's going to switch to A major. get to that in a second. All right, so now before we break that down as chords, I'm going to finish out just the one left-hand notes. We're going to go back in the next measure to our whole chord rhythm. So this next one is going to be after we do our A again. We're going to kind of do a similar sequence to what we just had. We're going to go to D for that next one, okay? And this next measure is going to be D. We've seen this kind of pattern before. This is nothing too new, right? D up to G. Okay. Now, in this final measure, we have two measures to go. We are going to add a few more chords in here. We're going to split these up. Yep. So headed over to this last measure, we've got two chords going on here. We're going to have, from this E, we're going to break file. We're going to go down to an E from that G, which is a third. This is no longer a fifth or a fourth. And then we're going to have an A. Let's switch this over to a half note. In the second half of that measure, that's going to be an A with those C's. And then for the very, very, very final note, we're going to have a C right there. And we've got a question from Liberty. Go for it.
Is it okay if you put, like, you know how you did it on the other one? Is it okay if you put the letter underneath the no?
Yes, that was the next step, but I will do that right now. Just make it easy. D, G, E, A, and then D to finish up. There we go. So now when you put that all together, that last part, so this is once again, I want to tell you this is a simplified version of the song. This is not the full-on original, because in this last section here in the original, there's a lot more chords. Okay, I've broken these down into the major ones that the ear wants to hear and needs to hear. So this is going to get you through it, and it's going to give you full harmonies throughout, but it's not going to be so overly complicated with these thick textures that it's going to be too difficult to play. So if you go and you try to play this along with the track, first of all, this is in a slightly different key, and second, I've rearranged the chords a little bit to make it easier to access. Okay, so now we've got our right hand and our left hand going for the entire duration of the piece here. Before anything happens, I'm going to click the save button because I've been known to not do that. And let's take a look at what this is going to sound like from beginning to end with both hands. Going to do a little scrolling. If you really, really want to, you can split that last measure into two chords again. I'm going to leave it at C here on the page. If you want to, you can do a split measure like before, where it's E to A, and this last one is G to C. But the only one that you really need is going to be that C. Here's that last line again. get you through from the beginning to the end. I want you guys to take a second to work through this, do the simple rhythm, do the advanced rhythm, the swung rhythm, and then I have another round of questions for you guys, which would be your second round of points. And then at the end of class here, I'm going to give you the opportunity, if you want to play all the way through it, you can. And if you can play all the way through it in both hands, you'll get a point, another point, a third point for class today. And if you can't, that's okay. Sign in early to one of the next classes that I have, either my guitar class tomorrow or my lecture class on Saturday, and play it for me, and you can get a third point for this class, okay? From the beginning, I want everybody to work on that. Oh no, come on, scroll. I don't know why it doesn't want to scroll. Well, then there we go. I don't know, technology's funny. There's the top. I'm gonna scroll through, I'm gonna play half of it, scroll down, play the second half. If you don't need the notes, that's great. But I want to play through this. I'm going to do it twice, once with the simple rhythm, once with the advanced rhythm, and I want you guys to play along with me, and then we're going to do a round of questions. Here we go. Simple rhythm first. That's that first line. Scroll down to those next lines. Last line. Okay, that's with the simple rhythm. Here is the more advanced rhythm. Next line, sorry. And the last line. There we go. There's the simplified rhythm and then the more advanced rhythm with both hands. I'm going to take a quick second here. Let me switch back out of camera. There we go. And first of all, questions from anybody? No questions, okay? Liberty, any questions? No. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourselves for just a few minutes. I have my second round of questions for you guys. Why Liberty? Why do you think in the second half of the song, the later part of the song? Now, this is not a clear-cut answer question, but this is definitely something that we've talked about before. Why is the second half of the song more complex than the first half?
I don't remember that question.
Okay, I'll let you think about it for a little bit here. I'm going to head over to Gabriel. So we've got a lot of fun stuff going on here. We've got our swing rhythm. We have chords that are going to be built into the left hand. I can show you guys that in a little bit here, but we're going to leave our paper the way it is now, just single notes. I'll ask you the same question. See if you know this one. Why is the later half of the song more complex than the first half of the song?
Because the melody changes?
That's part of it, yes. Any other ideas?
I'm not sure.
Okay, very good. So, Liberty, any ideas? I have a second question for you guys, so don't worry. You still have a chance.
I really honestly don't remember that.
Okay, so when it comes to harmony and melody, we build in complexity as we work through something. We don't start a song with the most complex part and then let it dry up towards the end. Quite the opposite. We start a piece of music, no matter what it is, usually with some simplicity, and it builds into something more interesting, more difficult, more complex. So when it comes to this particular song, in the beginning, we have pretty stationary positions for the hands. They don't move around a lot. The notes are kind of in organized clusters. the second part in here. They're pretty organized. Then we get to the third part, so the last part of the song, and the melody becomes more complex by far, and so our harmonic structure needs to become more complex. And the reason it becomes more complex in general is because as you approach the end of a song, even though the ending, the last measure or two, might be relatively calm or simple, we need to build some sort of anticipation for the end to create some sort of resolution. If you guys want to, in my guitar class and in my lecture class, I always talk about a little bit, especially last week, we talked a lot about some more theory stuff in music. If you can make it for that, even if you don't necessarily, if you haven't been attending those classes and you want to learn more about that, make sure you show up for those ones. Now, here's my second question for you guys. Let's go back to Liberty. We use both major and minor chords, right? And we've talked about this too. Why do we use major and minor and not just one or the other? You're muted right this second.
Because it makes it feel more fuller. It isn't just like it isn't just like, I don't know how to exactly the definition that you had done for me, but it makes it more forward.
That is correct. That's the right train of thought. If we had all these chords and they were all the same quality, like let's say they were all major, first of all, there's a clap on the first note. Oh, those two were okay. All right, let's go on. Okay, so first of all, we run into a problem melodically if we make all of our chords major. So let's just make them all minor. Maybe that'll be easier. That's not much better. We need variety, first of all, so that our chords will fit into our diatonic structure the way that they're supposed to. But second of all, to create some variety so that the music is not as bland and it's not as simple sounding. All right, one more question for Gabriel. You ready? Okay. So we have all of these moving chords. We have all of these moving hand positions and all of that. Does that make this song simpler? Just because we can break it down into hand positions. So I'm talking about piano music specifically. When you look at this song, even if you're looking at the notation, let me pull that up for you. When we have something that we can break down into position, does that make it a simple song just because we can break it down into a place where the hand doesn't have to move too much?
Does that make it a simple song?
I don't think there's really a simple song.
Yeah, I don't think there's just a clear-cut simple song.
That's correct. Just because you can break it down into the way that we did and give it a finger pattern and put it in position doesn't make it simple. And here's an easy sort of example as to why. If you tried to play this particular song on the saxophone, this is a really hard piece on the saxophone, especially in this particular key. You go to play this on, let's say, the cello. Once again, even though the pattern works out on the piano keyboard relatively well, the way the cello's set up, it's not quite the same style of pattern, style of playing. So just because when you look at something on the piano and you see, oh, well, this song is really simple, I can totally get through this. So I'm gonna grab my guitar and I'm gonna go and it's gonna be fine. Maybe not necessarily translate quite so well. And so I encourage people who play the piano, make sure that you understand and you appreciate other instruments too. Not that you don't, not saying that at all. But when you look at a piano piece and we played through it today and someone else is maybe struggling on it with a different instrument, it probably has other challenges and complications that we didn't even think of, and vice versa too. Something really easy on the saxophone, by the way, one of my least favorite instruments, is going to be really difficult on the piano because the saxophone is not a C keyed instrument, first of all. So everything is going to be in the key of B flat, maybe D flat, something like that. On the piano or the guitar even, it's a C keyed instrument by tuning. And so it's a little bit easier to see. So anyway, that was my last question for you guys. Now, you have the opportunity, if you guys want to right now, if you can play it from beginning to end with everything we talked about today, without any major disasters or forgetting different pieces of parts, you can have a third point for today. If you don't feel up to that, that's totally fine. You can upload a video of yourself practicing it this week to our Facebook page, or you can sign in early to another one of my classes in order to earn the point for the day. Does anybody want to give this a try? That looks like a no. Okay, so as you guys are practicing this week, I'd love to see your work and your practice. So please feel free to upload it to the Facebook page. That goes towards your Summer Olympics points too, right? You upload if you upload a video, it's 10 minutes, right, Mr. James?
Correct. It is an extra 10 minutes that you can log.
Awesome. Then as you guys go through it this week, either come to my next class, which is tomorrow. So if that's not enough time, come to my Saturday class and you can show it to me. If you can't make it to either of those, you can upload a video to YouTube of yourself playing this, and your video will automatically get 10 minutes for your Summer Olympics practice log, and you'll get an additional point if you can play the whole thing in that video for this class today.
Very cool.
And that's all that I have for you.